All right, grown-ups, it's just our time. I love the babies, but to help you, I gotta speak my mind. This segment's here to help you grow with book reviews, lessons, and things you'll be glad to know. If your little one's restless or looking to play, send them to my other playlist. The read alouds there will brighten their day. Oh, hey, welcome back to the Teacher Lady Show. I'm Miss Erica, the Teacher Lady, your fairy godparent when it comes to sharing joyful stories and growing young minds. Now, today we have the Teacher Lady Speaks, which is a crash course in that week's topic. And of course, all this week we have been talking about, drum roll please, Black Boy Joy. What does it mean to raise and empower our Black boys so that they can be as happy and as free as possible? Okay. We kicked things off on Monday with our read alouds. We had 3 books this week. We had Hey You, What Do Brothers Do All Day, and Black Boy, Black Boy. So, of course, we have the read alouds on Mondays. The Teacher Lady reads. Then on Wednesdays, we have the Behind the Book reviews where I tell you how to utilize those books as a resource. And today we are wrapping it all up with this episode of The Teacher Lady Speaks, a professional development from a well-meaning educator who knows just how hard it is to get our child to get it, whatever it might be. And this week, it is Black Boy Joy, the celebration of our young Black kings. Okay. Now, before we get into the actual episode with the resources, I am going to explain something that I've never done before, but I am going to explain why we are having Black Boy Joy Week. So let's start off with some statistics. All of the receipts on where I got these statistics from will be in the bio below, but just roll with me for a second. Black men have a shorter life expectancy on average in comparison to their white counterparts of the same age. That's one. They are more likely to have chronic heart conditions, diabetes, and other illnesses that are not addressed through healthcare or through our healthcare system. That's 2. 3, and this one was the most painful. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death for Black boys or young men ages 10 through 24. It is the 3rd reason why our Black boys die young. Black families are more likely to live in poverty, experience unemployment, and have lower household incomes, as well as lower educational degrees compared to their white non-Hispanic counterparts. They're also less likely to have health care or access to preventative health care services, which also impacts that suicide rate we read about earlier. As well as in terms of education, Black boys are more likely in preschool, that's before you get to kindergarten, preschool, to be suspended and or expelled. So the numbers are hard. And I'm not a person that looks at problems without looking at solutions. So for me, when I hear about these numbers and the statistical data and this research that has been done, of course, I'm heartbroken. But this also mirrors my experience in teaching and educating Black boys. I'm noticing the self-esteem is lower. They're having a hard time being in class, connecting with their educators, finding their identity, what is acceptable, what is socially acceptable, how do I fit into this world? And overall, those services, those intervention services, those services that are needed in order to get them out of that mental space, maybe therapy, we're lacking when it comes to our Black boys as a whole. And again, being that I'm not a person that has a bunch of problems without finding solutions, they absolutely deserve a week to celebrate, to love on them, to build their confidence, and to teach their grown-ups, their adults, their guardians, their counselors, their teachers, how do you support them? How do you empower them so that we're not running into these numbers, but we're running into numbers that are positive and that are beautiful, and that we're starting to see these Black boys on an individual basis. So that's why they have a week. And I believe any group of people that is facing this much hardship deserves a week on this show. They deserve to be celebrated. They deserve to hear how I feel, how other people feel in this really beautiful, bright, and positive way. All right. So this week it's about our Black boys. And if you're not a Black boy, you should still be here, because you should understand what it means to connect with the people around you. And if you are a Black boy, or if you're raising a Black boy, I'm so glad that you took the time to hear what I have to say. And maybe you can find something that will help you to help them. All right. Y'all ready to get into it? You ready? Let's grow. What is Black boy joy? Black boy joy is literally the ability for Black boys to be happy. There is so much that combats against their joy. There are stereotypes that combat against their joy. There's brutality, police brutality, misuse of authority that combats against their joy. There is the public persona of how you're supposed to be as a Black boy that works against their joy. There is the idea that if I'm a certain way, now I'm maybe being categorized in a sexuality I don't belong to or do belong to, or I'm being made fun of or being teased. And so you're constantly combating all of these things when it comes to Black boys and their self-esteem. And so Black boy joy is the ability for Black boys to be happy. Such a simple concept, yet and still the phrase was termed because clearly there is a miss and a disconnect when it comes to Black boys and them being happy for a multitude of reasons. I just named a few. And so what do? If we understand that this is the issue, we understand that they struggle with just being themselves and being happy and being accepted, what do? Well, that's what we're going to get into on this episode. All right, let's keep going. What do schools teach? Now, as always, on the Teacher Lady Speaks, we compare the state of Texas and their curriculum to the state of California and their curriculum, so that you as the parent, educator, guardian, whoever, understand what might be being learned in your child's classroom, okay? Neither of these states, Texas nor California, explicitly have a curriculum for Black boys and their joy. And I know the question is going to come up, do I think that they should? I do. And the reason why is because I feel like, given the numbers that I read earlier, we are at a point of intervention. Intervention meaning, as a country, as a society, as a community, if we see that a group of people needs help, well, we go out of our way to help them. And if you're seeing a duplicate of numbers over and over and over again, and you don't, of course, believe that Black boys are just born in all of these negative ways, then something needs to be done to combat that. And so I do feel like a curriculum around combating stereotypes, specifically when it comes to Black boys and their happiness, their self-esteem, combating some of the negative fears and prejudices would be great for schools to adopt. Obviously, we're not there yet, but let me tell you what these states do offer. So in the state of California, there is a history social science framework under the California Education Code 521210. Now, this is going to include things like cultural identity, civic responsibility, and awareness of diversity. So not explicitly for Black boys, but hey, I want our students to know that we're all different. We all deserve to be cared about, and we all have different cultural beliefs, and we all have different racial backgrounds or ethnic makeups. So that piece is a required part of California curriculum. It's just not specific to Black boys. Now, along those same lines, underneath California State's curriculum, there is something that's called the Transformative Social and Emotional Learning Competencies, or TSEL. Now, this framework is specific for things like perseverance, trying to teach children to move past negative situations, belonging, self-awareness, and well-being. So this more so focuses on overall community and gathering. Again, very generalized, not specific to Black boys. And so underneath these frameworks, we might be talking about the LGBTQ community. We might be talking about girls and girl empowerment, or maybe even some disability awareness. And I could not find anything specifically for Black boys. All right, moving on to the state of Texas. Now, Texas has a little bit less in their curriculum when it comes to cultural identity and diversity in general in comparison to the California state's curriculum. But what Texas does do under their code 113.11-113.15, they have their own kind of framework, which includes identity, diversity, empathy, and good citizenship. And so this is embedded into their K through 5 social studies curriculum. Now, in looking through their curriculum, it's more for like civic duties and civic responsibilities. How are you a good neighbor, or how are you kind of a good community person? But it's definitely not specific to racial or cultural identity. And of course, there is nothing specific to Black boys or Black boy joy. For that Texas essential knowledge and skills, I would say that it is a very general way of saying like we should all be good people, but there is just nothing particular. And let me explain to you why that's important. If you have a child in your class and that child is struggling, okay, let's say Jessica. Let's say every day Jessica has a hard time emotionally. And so she is just completely disconnected. She's crying. She's falling behind academically. You're noticing maybe her clothes are torn. You're noticing she's constantly hungry. You see that Jessica is having a problem. You can look at Jessica and you can say, hey, something is going on with Jessica. It does not make sense for you to then go over to Tony and say, hey, Tony, I'm going to sign you up for therapy. And I'm going to have a conference with your mom. And you know what? I'm going to give you a bunch of extra gold stickers. Why? Because Tony is not the focus right now. Tony comes in every day, backpack in hand, clothes clean. You can talk to the parents, no problem. He's fed. Tony is not the focus. Jessica is the focus. So often we have this lens of we all matter. We're all important. We need to make sure everybody is okay. And that is true. That is true. I don't disagree with that statement. Where we do disagree when I hear statements like that is when we have a specific group whose numbers, when I say numbers, I mean data, I mean research, I mean from everything that we can see and tell, that group is struggling. We don't divert the attention to a group that is okay. And the reality is our society does not see everybody the same, and they should not. But that also means that everybody is not treated the same. And that also means that some people have worse experiences than others. So in this case, our Jessica is Black boys, okay? And we're not worried about the Tonys because the Tonys are okay. The Jessicas are not. Does that make sense? Okay. So with that said, this is what you can expect your child to learn when it comes to the classroom. Now, of course, it is important to know and understand that just because the information is being offered does not mean that your child is going to learn it. Oftentimes, parents say, I'm going to leave the teaching to schools. I'm going to leave the learning to schools. And you're not understanding what it is that, for one, the school is actually teaching. I always recommend you ask for a syllabus at the beginning of the school year. A syllabus is a document that educator has created or at least adopted to say, this is what I'm teaching your child this year. So the first thing you want to do is you want to require a syllabus, or you want to ask or request a syllabus. And that syllabus allows you to kind of go through the year with the educator so that you can check in with your child to see, are you actually learning the information? You know, you can look at the syllabus and you can say by December, they should know they should know basic algebra, right? They should know algebra when it comes to 3-digit numbers. And then it's January and you're talking to your child and they don't even know what algebra is. So it is important for you to be involved, and it is important as a parent for you to not rely solely on the educational system to be teaching your child what you think is important. All right. All right, let's keep going. All right, we are going to talk about some resources that I feel like are beneficial when it comes to Black boys and their joys. The first resource I want to talk about is barbershop books. Now, barbershop books I love because so often our Black boys go to, well, barbershops, right? That's where they go get their lineup, they fades. That's where they connect to community. The barbershops really is kind of this hub for Black boy joy and Black boy connection in general. And so they'll go there to kind of get their haircut or whatever the service might be. And this organization, this nonprofit organization, is sending out books that are embedded in Black boy joy to the barbershop so that as children come to get their hair done, they have a representation of themselves and they have access to that literature. So this is I just love this. Like, I love anything that is going to think outside of the box for what we can do to contribute to Black boys and their overall esteem and, of course, literacy. Y'all know how I am. So I got to give a shout out to that resource. The next resource that I want to discuss is something called the Divine Nine. Shout out to my sorors, okay? Now, the Divine Nine is a collective group of both fraternities and sororities that are Black fraternities and sororities that all have a desired goal to help community. Like, that is why these organizations exist. The goal is to help. And so within the Black fraternities that are in the Divine Nine, you have Alpha Phi Alpha, Phi Beta Sigma, Kappa Alpha Psi, Omega Psi Phi, and Iota Phi Theta. And so you have these fraternities that are composed of Black men. And here's the thing. They might not have a specific mentorship group to help your Black boy. But if your Black boy is struggling, here is what I want you to do. I want you to hop on this beautiful internet. I want you to do a Google search of Omega Psi Phi, right? Like, that's a Black fraternity with Black men who kind of took these vows and these promises to help community. And so you're going to find that fraternity, you're going to find the local chapter, and then you're going to find the president of the local chapter. And I'm going to do an example. Let me think of a random city. Cincinnati. I don't know why Cincinnati, but we're going to do Cincinnati. And so I am going to go through. I'm going to search for the chapter in Cincinnati. I'm going to find their president, and then I am going to send an email. Okay. And you can do that for every single fraternity. And you can do that for every single chapter that is in the area. And then in that email, you are going to put a whole lot of truth. I have a 9-year-old son. His name is blank. He is struggling with blank. I need him to have access to mentorship. I need somebody to help me with him. He's struggling with schoolwork, whatever the case may be. And I am just wondering if you can find somebody within the organization who is willing to help me to help him. You're going to have to reach out. I will be very honest. This resource section, the section that I do for every Teacher Lady Speaks episode, this was the hardest one to find resources for Black boys, which simultaneously mirrors all of the negative and the hurtful and painful numbers that we saw at the beginning of the show. It's not a coincidence. And so because it is hard to just find resources, right? Support groups for Black boys, mentorship programs for Black boys, camps for Black boys, tutoring services for Black boys, mental health services for Black boys, because it is hard, because I am a researcher. I am very well connected. Because it is hard to find, we're going to have to think outside the box. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to send them an email and you're not going to stop. You're going to do it for all the Black fraternities, okay? Now, if you're not getting responses from them, you're going to come on over to the sororities. Delta Sigma Theta sorority actually has a mentorship program for Black boys. And so you're going to reach out to them too. And then you can even send an email to Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, which is my sorority. And you can say, I understand that you're a sorority and you're a woman-based sorority. But if you have a spouse, if you have an uncle, if you have a friend, if you know somebody in another fraternity, if there's anybody who can help, I am struggling and I need intervention and support services, you're going to copy and paste. And you're going to keep copy and pasting until you find somebody to help your child. Do not give up on your baby. Do not give up on your baby. You find that one person that's going to get them to listen. You find that person that used to be in them streets and now they didn't change their life. You find that person that used to be in prison and now they in the church. You find that person who is a college graduate and never been from the hood. You find the person that is going to help and invest their time and energy into making sure that your Black son, your Black student, your Black child gets where they're supposed to go. And you're going to do it on purpose. And it's going to be exhausting. It is going to be exhausting. And it is a very out of the box way of thinking when it comes to finding resources for Black boys. But being that at this point, I've spent weeks combing through websites, social media pages, sending emails, trying to find resources and have come up short. And it's not just this administration. I've struggled with finding resources for Black boys under other people's administration as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to think outside that box. You're going to go to that PTA meeting and you're going to explain the situation. You're going to be vulnerable. For those who are concerned with sharing your business, well, I don't want everybody in my business, baby. Sometimes people have to be in your business in order for your family to be okay. Sometimes you got to open up a little bit. And I know Black folks specifically often have discard or sensitivity when it comes to anybody we see as authority or anybody outside of our family, and respectfully so. But I don't want you to be so quiet that now your child ends up in a place where they don't belong or with problems that they didn't have to have because we didn't go seek help. So you're going to take that email, you're going to send it to the whole Divine Nine, okay? You can say, this crazy lady from YouTube told me to reach out. I don't care, but you're going to send out that email. That is another resource for you to have. The next resource that I want to shine light on is Kingmakers of Oakland. Now, I did not find anything for like international resources, but they do have an online website. And even with that, even if you are not in the city of Oakland, I would definitely reach out. They do different support groups. They do things around like video and editing, but overall, it is a space, again, dedicated to Black boys and education and just overall connection. And so I would reach out and say, hey, I know you're based in Oakland. I live in this city, or I'm in Chicago, or wherever you might be. And I am hoping that, again, somebody can give me some resources, some mentorship, or some support when it comes to helping my child. The next resource you want to take with a grain of salt. So there is a resource called the Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. And in theory, it is a great program. It is a mentorship program that pairs children with mentors, people who are in different fields or maybe in college, just to help them. Mentorship is extremely important, especially when it comes to Black boys who are having mental health issues. Now, the thing about Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America is that you might be on a wait list for a while. And so sometimes we don't have a while to find help. You can definitely complete that application and say, hey, I want to find a mentor for my child. And these are the things that I need that mentor to have. I need them to be Black. I need them to be male identifying. You know, you can kind of go through the things that you think your child would best connect with and then get on that wait list, because who knows, you know, maybe something will come available sooner than later. But as a person who has gone through this program for my students, I have had the whole year go by and have not gotten a response. Like all nonprofits right now, I run a nonprofit, are doing the best that they can. And it is in no way to shine any negative light on that organization, because again, we're all limited in what we can do. But you, as the viewer, the one that is needing immediate help, I would like for you to understand that there is a bit of a wait list. If your child is ultimately selected for the program, it could be a while. Okay, so sign up, but don't have that as like, I did it and I'm gonna walk away. Just more so have that as an additional. Now, this next resource I am going to talk about is one that I just think is absolutely amazing. From everything that I've read, they're still operating, and I hope that to be true. But I'm really highlighting this as a way to say, like, we need to replicate this everywhere. There is a program based out of Georgia, and that program is funded by the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. Black Boys Better. And Black Boys Better goes into 6 schools in the state of Georgia and creates community. They have a support group there. They have mentorship there. They talk to those boys. They build that relationship. They teach Black boys alternative tools like creative writing, poetry, music, just ways to express themselves. They teach them things like social emotional skills and controlling your emotions, kind of all these things that everybody should know, but it is specifically for Black boys, started for Black boys on purpose. And so that program is in the schools. When I did this research, it was in 6 Georgia schools. I'm also going to link that website in the description box because, again, even if you're not in Georgia or your child is not in one of the 6 schools that has this dope program, I would still reach out. You see the theme here. You gonna baby, we sending emails this year, okay? You're gonna reach out and you're gonna say, hey, I know your program is in Georgia. I'm in this location. I need help. Do you have online resources? Is there something additional you can offer? Whatever, right? And so again, reach out. And of course, other resources, the local church and church community. You go to one and it doesn't work for you, you can go to another for sure. Libraries are always a beautiful resource for any group of people, including Black boys. The library is going to have different programs, tell you about different community events. So really, honestly putting in work to find spaces that your child can be happy, that they can start to learn how to breathe, how to connect with community because they need it. Best practices at home when it comes to Black boy joy. The first best practice is to get to know your child on an individual basis. And what I mean is that if your Black boy is interested in dancing, baby, let that boy dance. They want to do theater, let them do theater. Get to know them and then support them and what their current dreams or passions are. So many people struggle with joy because they're not doing the thing they feel kind of drawn towards, right? So I want to be an artist, but I'm never doing art. Well, of course, it's going to make anybody frustrated or angry. There's an outlet there that needs to be explored. And so the first best practice is to get to know your Black boy well for them, right? To understand them, to see what spaces you can put them in that will fit well and align with their desires. That is super important. The next best practice when it comes to Black boy is almost a gentleness. And so Black boys really do have it rough. We tend to be very abrasive with our Black sons. We tend to be rougher, tougher, and this is backed by research. This is not even my personal opinion. It is backed by research, and I've seen it in terms of my experiences. There are studies who legitimately have come out, there are psychiatrists who have come out with these studies where they feel like Black boys can handle a different level of pain, that emotionally they don't respond to emotions or have emotions in the same way as other people. Completely false and have been debunked at this point. But what I am saying is that oftentimes we will still carry that lens. Approach your child with love, with grace, with understanding, and with an open ear and mind. Because as they're navigating this world, they already got to be all these things for all these people and they're trying to figure it out. The last thing they need to do is come home and you're yelling at them because they left a sock on the floor. Now, I will also say that it is easier for you to address and approach your child with love and understanding when you have done the emotional work yourself on yourself, right? Because if you're frantic and exhausted and overworked and underpaid in your own life, if you hate your own job, if you're having a hard time yourself, it is going to be very difficult to extend a gentleness, a love, a kindness to your children because you're carrying everything and now you're home and they need dinner and they need paper signs and they need bath and it's just too much, right? So before you can even get to loving your child with as much care and kindness as I know that you're capable of, you're going to have to love yourself. You're going to have to do some internal work to work out whatever it is you got going on in that closet of yours. And that might mean therapy. That might mean a change of job or even a change of city and location, and just really focusing on your own self-care, because the better we are as individual people, because before we had that baby, we was people, right? Like we're human. Adults ain't nothing but older kids. Like, and so it is important to check in with yourself, get your emotions under control. And then from there, when you go to address your children, you'll be able to do so in a different way. I use the example of, I remember years ago, this here internet was in an uproar because I made this statement that gentle parenting is privileged parenting. Gentle parenting meaning holding children accountable in a way that feels good for both of you. Watching your tone of voice, not doing a whole lot of screaming and yelling, having open communication with your child. It's kind of a gist or a general background as to what gentle parenting is. And I made this statement of gentle parenting is privileged parenting, and people were upset. But years later, I still stand on that statement because it is very true. If you are in a situation to where your 4-year-old spills out a box of cereal and you can just go buy more cereal, or better yet, there are other boxes available, no big deal. We clean it up, we learn. We got to be a little bit more careful. We smile, we hug, and we move on. If you were in a situation to where that cereal needed to last the rest of the week until you could get back to food pantry because you don't have a car, you don't have no money, this is how you feed, your kids, and now you have wasted this entire box of cereal, there is an angrier automatic response because your basic needs are not taken care of. So I'm not saying that it is impossible to gentle parent when your resources lack or when you are mentally struggling with something, but I will definitely say that it is harder. And so since we know that it is harder, if that is your situation, then it's going to take a bit more work. It's going to take a bit more of you being aware of how you're coming across, of the tone that you speak in. This next best practice is going to get me in trouble with some of these Black boys. But if your baby is angry, if your child is angry, I'm gonna need you to turn off that NBA young boy. I'm gonna need you to turn off that bang, 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 shoot 'em up, I'm gonna get 'em music, because it is encouraging that anger. We are going to have to get them out of that anger before we enjoy that new bop, okay? Before we blast that music. The images that they're seeing, that they're listening to, the TV shows they're watching, the TikTok videos or social media accounts that they're following, they all matter. They all have a huge impact on that child's emotional well-being. And at my grown age, if I am not in good spirits, if I'm not my joyful, bubbly, happy self, I'm not turning on no music that's going to encourage me to do something that I don't want to do or I don't have no business doing. I'm not even going to put that in my mind. I'm not going to put it in my body. And the same is true for your children and for your family. If your child is already angry, we're going to turn off the angry music. If they already sad, baby, we're going to turn off the sad music. If they're having identity issues and they feel like they got to be this big, tough gangster, we're not going to watch Straight Outta Compton for the third time this week. We're not going to turn on that video game that's shooting up people's cars. We're going to make sure to have movies and music and media that is combating what it is they're struggling with, not encouraging it. So that is a best practice. And of course, it's going to be hard to do, but it's possible. And at least you can reduce it. Another best practice is to spend time with your child on purpose. Okay? So literally, hey, on Thursday, I wanted us to go get a bite to eat together. Just me and you. I'm not taking your siblings, just me and you. Just one-on-one connection. Because Black boys, and all of these things are really applicable to all groups. This week, though, we talking about my Black boys, okay? But it really is universally applicable. People want to feel cared about and thought of. And so, especially if your child is the older sibling and they always have to be the responsible one and they're always the last to get new clothes or the last to be able to eat dinner, take a moment and connect with that child and let them know that you see them. Find something positive that I don't care if you got a straight rough neck and they acting up. Baby, they into it left and right. They in fights left and right. They going off on the teacher. You feel like they done lost their mind. You find something. You find something to love on that baby about. You get creative. That they hold the door open for you. You get creative and you find something, because right now all of their attention is coming as a result of their negative behaviors. So if you want to change that, you're going to have to give attention as a result of the positive behaviors they've displayed. Simple things like, good morning, mama. Oh, I'm so glad you told me good morning. Hey, son. Loving on him, right? And so really focusing on the things that we want to improve and increase are essential when it comes to best practices. Now, I can do this all day. I love Black men. I love Black boys. I love children in general. And so I can give you practice after practice after practice after practice. But what I will leave you with for the purposes of this episode is to not give up on your child, to work at finding things that will help them. Find that support group, that mentor, spend those extra minutes with them, give them a break. Learn about them, encourage the things that might be quirky or weird or strange, because most Black boys don't do that. Give books, show them books, especially if they're younger. Really expose them to picture books. We feature 3 this week. I'm also an author and illustrator, and I have books with Black characters that show joy, Black boys that show joy. And so what I'm trying to say is the best practice is to put in work, to make sure you're okay first, but they're okay second. All right, y'all, let's keep going. When to seek help. Well, under resources, you already know, I feel like seek help just to go get it, right? But then there is another tier of like, all right, at what point do I need to get some intervention services? So if your child is displaying signs of Great Depression, withdrawals, they constantly have the hoodie over their head and are kind of tucked in. They don't want to communicate at all. I'm talking about they don't have nothing to say to nobody ever. It's time for you to go get some help. And I'll talk about what that help might look like in a minute. If your child is consistently showing out or acting out aggressively, if they want to hurt people, it's time to go get some help. If your child is suicidal or they've displayed words that they want to harm themselves or other people, it's time to go get some help. If your child is struggling so bad with identity that they don't want to play football, but they're forcing themselves to be on a football team because they think that that's what Black boys do, of course, it's time to go get some help. Here's what I say for this section. You know your child. You know them. Trust yourself. And if you're just getting to know your child, observe them. But if you recognize that something is off, something ain't right with my baby, do something about it. And here are some things that you can do. The first is your local church, regardless of your religious belief. Churches are charities. They are public charities. They are nonprofit organizations. They receive tax exempt that churches don't pay taxes because they're supposed to help community. Okay? Before you get to what you call God or whatever text, Bible, what have you, churches in the United States of America that have signed up for IRS tax exempt status have a legal obligation to help. That help might be a food bank, a support group, something in between, a Sunday class. I don't know. It's going to depend on that church, that pastor, and how they do things. But go get the help. Don't let your reservation when it comes to religion stop you from receiving help. Okay, that is one thing. The next, again, I'm going to mention is the library, because the library Historically, we're living in very different times, but historically speaking, has been the place for community gathering. The library has meeting rooms. They have books available. They have DVDs available. They have magazines available. Go get to know your local librarian and understand what it is in that beautiful building that can help you and your family. If your child is displaying any of the things that I talked about, go to excuse me. Well, if your child is college, that's great. But go to the school counselor and say, hey, I'm noticing my child is struggling. And here's the other thing while I'm thinking about it. Just because your child is having a hard time does not automatically mean that they need special education. Now, my master's and my degrees are in special education, and it's the work that I do. But oftentimes, schools will say, well, this child, sometimes that's a Black boy, is not performing well. We're going to put him in special education. And here is the double-edged sword when it comes to special education. Individualized education plans or IEPs are brilliant. Special education classes are great when the child actually needs them. Okay, because they have a diagnosed disability, because they don't learn in the same way as their peers, because they need the additional kind of resources or exemptions in order for them to do well in school. But if your child does not need it, then they should not be there because it will hinder their learning. It's like you having a headache. So you got a headache and then they give you medicine for a brain tumor. Huh? I don't have a brain tumor. I just have a headache. I have a symptom of a brain tumor, but I don't have a brain tumor. But now you're diagnosing me for the wrong thing. The same is true for special education. Just because your child is having troubles with behavior or even academics does not automatically equate to them needing special education. Now, they might need special education. And if they do need special education, we'll let them get specially educated. But please do not assume, because oftentimes we are so represented in special education. When I say we, I mean Black people, and we don't always need it. And that takes away from children who actually do need it. So I am in no way advocating against special education. I'm a special educator. But what I'm saying is it's not automatic. And don't let them schools tell you it's automatic. Do proper due diligence, testing, and research to make sure that it's what your child needs. And of course, if that's what they need, then give it to them. But if not, do these other things like the counseling, the therapy, mentorship, so that they can do well in the class that they're supposed to be in. Common questions. One of them is, I'm a white mom and I'm raising a Black son. What do I do? You go get help. That's what you do. It is impossible as a Black woman to know automatically how to raise every aspect of Black boys, like how to support every aspect. As white people, your skincare routine might differ. Your hair routine might differ. How you're perceived in this country is going to be different. Safety rules don't apply. And so you can love that baby, and you can love that baby with all that might, and you might have adopted that baby because that baby wasn't in the best of situation. Whatever your backstory, I'm rooting for you, okay? And you have to humble yourself enough to understand that you don't have all the answers. I am the mother of a young Black girl. I've taught young Black girls for like 14 years now. I'm happily married, financially stable, and I ain't got all the answers when it comes to Addison. Okay? So there is something really special in being like, I don't know, let me go find out, instead of assuming that I know and then causing more damage. I have a kid who likes music and dance and theater and is so social and talkative, and she's just different. She's a little unicorn. So I had to get to know that unicorn. Now, with you and with you being a whole different race and whole different background, you are going to have to put in work to get that child around people who look like them and to find resources that will help educate them on their culture, because they still Black. They're still Black. They should see that they're Black. We don't do the whole I don't see color because that takes away from their identity. Take them to that Black History Museum. Find those mentorship programs. Do research on their hair care. Put them in a barbershop. Maybe they'll find a book from the resource we talked about earlier, right? But being intentional around putting them in spaces that are going to make them feel most comfortable is very important. Loving them to the best of your ability, but understanding that you're not going to know everything is very important. And that is the quickest advice that I can give when it comes to white people raising children that are not white. Another common question, which I'm going to go ahead and say that this was just a person being weird on the internet, because people get to do that. But, if all statistics are pointing back to Black boys struggling with all these issues, then maybe there is something wrong with Black people. We're not going to go there. We're not going to go there at all. We're not on my channel. If you truly believe that a Black person being born automatically means all of these negative stereotypes for Black people, you have work to do that I can't help you here. And I doubt that you even got this far in the episode, okay? But we don't do that. We get to know our babies individually. We learn Black history and culture as a whole, and we love on them and we move on. But there is nothing Black people are born with that is negative or bad, or our brains are different. All of that has been debunked, and it's just simply not true. And if your child is hearing some of those things, let them know that as well. Be very honest with your child about their reality in this country, not in a state of victimhood, but awareness. It is dangerous to decide to just not teach your child, to just not share what is going on around them. That is dangerous. There is balance, but it's dangerous, which actually brings me to my last question. Do I talk to my child about things like social justice issues, police brutality, how to handle being a Black man in the environment or as they navigate the world? You have to. And I would go as far as to say that it is extremely dangerous not to. Now, does that mean you wake up at breakfast time and say, hey, look who got killed today? Absolutely not. You take care of that baby's mental health. But there should be an understanding of what do you do when you get pulled over? How do you handle situations with officers? What might their demeanor be? Because what has their demeanor been historically? Police officers, before they were police officers, were the ones that hunted down runaway enslaved people. That's historically, that same looking badge, that's where that came from. So it's important for them to understand kind of context and history without being like, yep, you go outside today and it could be over for you. There is a very thin and important line when it comes to issues like this. So have conversations with your child, but let them know that they are safe, that they are loved, that they're beautiful, that you're so excited to see all the things that they got going on. And we are not going to overwhelm them with that Friday night news. We just not going to do it. Whatever day you see, I don't know what day the news come on because I don't even watch the news, but we're not going to do that. So it is important to educate without instilling fear. And if you don't know how to do that, of course, you're going to have to do research, read books, connect with people to learn. Okay. Wow. That is a mouthful. I think the only thing that I did not address is having Black boys in your class or having a Black student in your class. If you're an educator watching this, I will say to definitely cultivate an environment where that child feels comfortable. Make sure you have literature and posters that reflect them. Make sure you get to know that child for that child. You don't need to change how you speak or try to dap them up or try to, put off whatever it is that you think they're going to sound or look like. Instead, you're going to get to know that baby like all your other babies, and you're going to do proper due diligence to try to teach them to the best of your ability. So with all that being said, I thank you for growing with me. I thank you for being part of this week. If you have a Black boy, love on them. If you do the best you can with the resources that you have available, go out into the world and try your best. I'm so proud of you for stepping outside of what might be your comfort zone and listening to this week's episodes available. Black boys deserve joy and happiness just like anybody else. If you have not already done so, make sure to sign up for the newsletter below. And of course, I'm an author illustrator that started the Empathy Library, which is a pay it forward initiative to get books to children in need. So if you're able to, go to the website and donate. But until next time, remember to enjoy the moment or go be a joy in the moment. Bye.